Swaha, Om Hum 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 Swaha. Welcome to the Knowledge of Freedom teachings. It's based on a book by Tartan Tulku Rinpoche. In 1984, at Christmas Eve, I received this teaching from Rinpoche. It's nice if you keep track of what teaching you received when. Rinpoche is not publicly, but in internal publication, he is making a list and lists of all the initiations and transmissions he got. And of course, that's a different world, but it's very impressive, not only how many, but that he remembers what day and what night and what the circumstances were. So now I'm not comparing this, Rinpoche handing me this book with anything that Rinpoche is talking about, but it is a special moment for you. Like, when did you hear, how did you hear about Kum Nye for the first time? What were the circumstances? Because there is usually, a spark might be a little bit too much, but there might be something in the air or in your body that made you click to this specific teaching. So it was Christmas Eve, and Rinpoche was sitting on the couch and I was sitting on a pillow, and there was a fire going on, and he had a very big coat on because he didn't want to turn the heater on. So, and then he asked me to study this and come back the next day with a manual for a 2-month program. And I had a desk downstairs where I would be once a week, and that desk had a red cardboard on it so that I wouldn't fall asleep. But I did fall asleep very often. And how I made the manual is actually how the heart of this teaching, that's questioning. So I started to ask myself questions, and as I started to ask myself questions and answer them, I discovered that the majority of my questions was answered by the table of contents of Rinpoche's book. So since 1984, this has been in the back of my mind, and sometimes very much in the foreground, because I would lead retreats of 2 months, and even 2 months was not enough. So now we have a few sessions, 14. And we're going to try to get a taste of this book in such a way that you feel inspired to go on. It's a very powerful teaching in the sense that it appeals directly on 2 essential qualities we have. One is question, to confront. Confront is not like like a kind of an encounter group confronting. Confront is like you really look at what is happening in your life. But the looking is without guilt and without fear. Just like, Rinpoche would say, oh and ah, in the text that you will read. So, oh and ah. And of course, it's much more special than we maybe realize on a daily life, that this is your life. And to look at your life can be a confrontation, can be a disappointment, can be an inspiration, but to look at your life with a wonder, like, here's a life unfolding, and it may end any time, and if we are lucky, we have a full life, but here's a life that is taking shape. So to question this life, not question in the sense of doubt, as sometimes in the Portuguese language, when they say, I have a doubt, they actually mean they have a question. So to question in the sense of being interested. So that's an important part of this teaching, to be interested. And of course, to question has an impact on you. So this teaching is not that we add something. We're getting another experience and we add to our experience one more experience. No, it's not. We're looking at our experience of life, and especially what is guiding us and what wisdom is informing our actions. That's what we'll look at. What wisdom is informing your actions? And the second component of this process is to become aware. There are stages in becoming aware, and being interested, paying attention, being aware of something. But all of those, although we have to start there, paying attention, being interested, focus. That's really the beginning of opening up. But we're still doing that as an outsider, as a bystander, as somebody who is separate. But at some point, with the practices that we do, we will go into awareness. So we're not observing anymore, but that the separation will it's not even separation, but that the perceived separation will diminish and we become more and more embodying life. So awareness begins with focus and attention, being interested. But the goal of awareness is to match awareness and living. So awareness and living becomes no longer separate. So questioning and being aware, that's at the heart of this teaching. The first chapter is called Human Inheritance, and we will work with that in the first session, Human Inheritance. And I can give a brief overview, and then I would like to go to the text, but that's a little bit quick. But I will go slower to the end, because there is a trick I want to tell you, that usually Rinpoche, in the first paragraph, he not necessarily complete vision, but in the first paragraph, Rinpoche sums up a situation, what's happening. And in the very end, Rinpoche writes how we can live with that situation. And in the middle are all the variations of the situation we are living in. And so in between is a description of all the very different ways of how we are dealing, you might say, dealing with this, the first paragraph, how we fall away from it, how we come back. And in the end, there's always and this is the way to embody it and make it work for you. We will use Kum Nye dancing, Rinpoche's book Kum Nye Dancing, and it's a specific reason why we do this. Kum Nye Dancing was given to us in 2012, also in a very, very interesting way, but it's not enough time to talk about it. But basically, we got 2 sheets with little 4-color images of exercises. And then he says, I'll give you a text. Can you make a book out of it? So 3 of us did that. But the Kum Nye Dancing is a specific take on Kum Nye. Whereas the first book, and I'm summarizing, if you cannot follow everything, it's okay. You can get the audios later anyway. And not every word maybe makes sense or is recognizable. So the first Kum Nye is about becoming alive. So there are blockages in our subtle body energy system. It's about our subtle body, our energy body. And the physical body is on loan. So we are not our body is a very important insight. That's not part of this teaching. But we are not our body, we have a body. And we're living in the body. So the body is a vehicle. And the body gives us senses and human intelligence and all of that. But what lives inside the body, that's who we really are. So the first book is wholeness, is aliveness, is that the energy body begins to flow. Apparently it consists of chakras and energy channels. And they show blockages because of how we tend to live. And so you become more and more alive. And the way that shows is usually people are very quickly more happy. Maybe in the beginning tired and sleepy or cannot sleep anymore, all kinds of transitional possibilities. But in the end, a Kum Nye person of the first book has an abundance of energy and is the person's anchor is in the language of the body, not in the mental mind thinking what to do. So that's the first book, roughly. And the second book is, it sounds in some languages the same, but it's not. The second book is about completeness. So the first book is about energy, and the second book is actually about perception. So when the energy is all flowing, we call it wholeness. And when the perception is open, no longer dualistic, one space, we call that complete. But in some languages, they use the same word for it. So if you are teaching this, you have to find a way to describe it to people that these are different words. Wholeness is all your energy is alive, and completeness is that there is no longer anything excluded, and that you are not an outsider, you're not an observer, and that everything is taking place in one space. So you embody openness. That's joy of being, roughly. And then the third book, Kum Nye Dancing, is, and that's why we're using the Kum Nye Dancing, is we don't need to assume, it's true. We become more alive and more complete, and nothing is missing. That's the beauty of being complete, that you feel that there's nothing missing. And you're self-nurturing, self-reliant, self-confident, and self-counseling. So the life living in the body becomes your counselor. So your first book, you need to learn the language of the body, and the second book, you become your experience. Life living in the body is your counselor, not your thoughts, which is what it usually is, but your life living in the body is your counselor. And then the third book, Kum Nye Dancing, is infinite manifestations of that. What would it be like if we were whole and complete? If the experience of the first two books is working, what would it be like? So the first exercise we will do in a moment is called leaving the corral. So corral, not all languages know what that means. Corral is like a gated, as usually related to animals. So the cows or the horses, they live in a corral, means that there's a fence around them and they have to live in that. They're not living in the wild. So you'll see that Rinpoche uses this a lot also in this book, that our way of living is many ways living in a corral, and that sometime in your life you have to jump the corral, break the corral, jump out of the corral. Not because the grass is greener on the other side, but the corral is limited, and to have specific inhibitions, limitations, fears and guilt. That all indicates that there's a corral that we're living in. So the first one is leaving the corral. So you're showing that. And you can say, well, that exercise? Well, you do the exercise, we call it gesture, because we're not exercising anything, we're just expressing. So the first one will be leaving the corral. So you will hear the title and the gesture, but in this context of this teaching, be more interested in the sentence than the bodily movements. You just copy, you mimic Andy, and it will be fine. But the sentence, leaving the corral, I'm showing what it is like when I'm leaving the corral. Not if, when I'm leaving the corral, as I'm leaving the corral. So these teachings fit together well. So to give you a little break and also to get you a little bit more in the openness, because Kum Nye Dancing is based, remember, joy of being is embodying openness. And then Kum Nye Dancing expresses the different wisdoms that we can manifest in openness. So why don't we do this, and then we'll go and discuss a little bit in detail the human inheritance and the power of questioning. So the exercise, the gesture is 15, and just copy Andy. I'll give a little bit instruction, but the minimal instruction. So it assumes you already have done Kum Nye 1 and Kum Nye 2, but it's not necessary. You can also do this right down, as long as you don't focus too much on the posture and the movements. Focus on the sentence. So now in your mind, leaving the corral, leaving the corral. No guilt, no fear. That is very important. Guilt and fear keep us in the corral. So begin to raise the arms forward to shoulder high, to palms facing down. So don't focus, you just copy Andy. Leaving the corral, that's all in every cell is announcing leaving the corral. Now bend the knees and lower the pelvis as if you were going to sit down, but not below knee level. And the gaze is slightly above the horizon, panoramic. So in these teachings of Kum Nye dancing, the eyes are mirrors. There's nothing going out and nothing going in. It's just open. Leaving the corral. So you're replacing your internal dialogue with a new wisdom. Leaving the corral. And if you think about it, it's okay, but then come back, leaving the corral. Now begin to straighten the legs, and in one movement the torso comes to a horizontal position. And the arms go down, and the fingers pointing to the ground, and the top of the head points forward. Leaving the corral. You don't need to embellish that. You don't have to make it interesting or meaningful. Don't add anything to the sentence. The clusters of cells are informing the next cluster of cells. Leaving the corral, guys. This is the moment. Leaving the corral. So all the cell level, the healing needs to take place on the cell level. And in a swinging motion, the upper body and arms come up, the palms facing forward and the fingers pointing towards the sky. Armpits are open. And you look slightly above the horizon, so you don't look at the fingertips. So now we do this a few times, and we do this in a rhythm. And it's very clear when we read the first chapter already why rhythm is so important. So we do rhythm of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. And up. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Coming down. 1. Hold in the middle. 4, 1. Oh, 1. 1. Now silent count. 3, 4, silent. Keep counting, silently. 1. You want this inner rhythm. So you count. It establishes a rhythm that everything can fall into. Oh, 1. 1. 1. Last time. 4. And then 2 times 4 downward. Let's sit down. So in Kum Nye dancing and in knowledge of freedom, we're always on the threshold of the future. So the future is open because we are embodying openness. It's important when you take this teaching that you don't worry too much about the past. Let me explain that. We are already embodying the past. We're going to read this chapter, take little excerpts on human inheritance, the first chapter, is that we didn't parachute down in this life. It's not like the parents come together and boom, there we are, all living in a vacuum, and we're trying to find our way the best way we can. So as we are living, as we are being conceived, as we are being born, we are landing in a live stream, you could say. Now, if you look at the first chapter, if you want to open up the book, first is it's page 5, Human Inheritance. So may I ask you to stay with where we are and not read ahead or being in the past. Reading ahead or hanging somewhere. So these teachings, we are on the threshold of the future. The future is open, and actually so is the present too. And so is the past as well. So this is a major change. You know, people usually report on what happened to them or what happens now. Sometimes I have in a class or in an encounter with somebody, and of course I do it too, that I say something to somebody and they say, oh, now I understand. I first thought, and then they're going to tell me what they thought before, which is already superseded by what they understand now. You know what I'm talking about? So you don't need to tell us what you thought and actually let you in the wrong direction. Oh, I thought you were going to say that. No, I wasn't going to say. You don't know what I'm going to say to begin with. And second, I'm saying something else. Yeah, but I would like to tell you still that I thought. No. And this is, in Kum Nye, this happens in every seminar. If I ask how was the experience like, people say, well, at first it was difficult. I didn't know how to do it, but how is it now? Well, I feel really much more relaxed and open, and so that's where you start. You don't need to report anything of what came before. And the reason for that is the moment that you report about the past, you're actually looking in the future backwards. So you're going across the threshold into the future, looking backwards. You understand the image? So in Kum Nye, knowledge of freedom, the future is open. Because you embody already the past. We get to that in a second. So you don't need to report. But not only don't you need to report, we don't know much about the past. It's not the one thought that you had that was right or wrong. That's maybe not very important. Like even a seminar like this, you know, you had maybe a thought, well, I need to enroll, I need to take this course. But what led up to it? Well, because a friend told me, or my partner told me, or I have another seminar that I liked, so maybe I like this one too, or I always wanted to study knowledge. Okay, that is a very limited understanding of why we are here. There's a huge process that's going on all the time, and within that process of living, somehow we got here. So now that we are here, in this seminar, in this moment in our life, look forward, because if you reminisce, if you are thinking about the past, you're walking backwards in the future. You do not need to report because there's much more going on than we actually know is going on. So there are two reasons, right? One is if you report the past, you're walking backwards into the future. And secondly, what you and I think is why we do something is maybe not the reason at all. So if you look at special moments in your life, big changes in your life, they were not preceded by a thought. Maybe you had a wish. That could be a wish that was answered. But the wish that's answered is only a wish that really belongs to you. That's not like a casual wish. That's a really heartfelt wish. Yeah, that can be answered. But otherwise, whatever the big changes in your life came from the outside, maybe from the inside it seems, if it was a genuine wish. But the point is, they didn't come through thinking. So if you think about your life, if you think about why you are here, it's very limited. So every moment we are inclined to say, well, I'm now, let's say 60, so I'm embodying 60 years. And everything that happens, I can relate to what happens in these 60 years. Very often, and maybe I'm not so hip anymore to this, but when I started in the 70s and 80s with Rinpoche, was human potential, was very big. We thought there is a reason for everything. I am this way because of that. So let's say that you have explosive outbursts, or you are very shy and timid, kind of a basic shame. It is because my parents, usually it comes to parents. Something happened in the past. And these teachings say, yes, they were a great influence, very, very great influence, for the single reason that we wanted to, knowingly or unknowingly, we wanted to belong to this family, because they gave us a shelter, a roof, they gave us food. It's the same with the cat at home or the dog at home. They follow you all the time because you are their food bank. You know, they don't want to get disconnected. If you go away, they're afraid. Not because they miss the intimacy with you, because the food. What's going to happen to the food? This is my home. I'm dependent on you. So when we are very young, unknowingly, we are very dependent on where we are. So we try to fit in, and we pay a high price for that. You know. Trying to fit in is one of the key factors of the corral, that the pasture, the fence that we have become part of. As long as we belong, as long as we are part of the family, we are willing to comply with the rules and regulations as much as possible. But it goes much further. It is way too simple to say, well, I am timid because my father or my mother. because they were timid because of their mother and father. But not only that, they were very much influenced by the culture. I won't go into that now, but I give seminars in different countries, and I love to see what is typical for that country. Right? A Dutch person is in general, especially above the rivers, very different than a German person, very different than a Brazilian, very different than Argentinian. And of course, these are labels of what you see, but they're really influenced. So it's not only the parents, it's the culture that we grew up in. But it goes way back more. Remember, she says maybe 1,000 million years. So it's important to see, and I'm making a very big jump, that at this moment we are on the threshold of an open future. Because the nature of our being, the nature of life is open. And every instant, there are all these millions of manifestations of life, which is by itself a miraculous process. So suddenly there's a form, and they're being born, and they're being born. But that only takes place because there's a fundamental openness. But all these moments in time build on the previous one. And Buddhism is called karma. It's not like all of a sudden a totally original thing is happening. It could, any instant, there could be a complete breakdown of everything. So if there's I don't know anything about the Big Bang, but if there's a big explosion, everything changes. Even a simple, quote-unquote, earthquake changes everything. Everything that seems solid and reliable has suddenly disappeared in an instant. So we are embodying everything that came before. So in the human inheritance, Rinpoche is describing, let's say in detail for us, or for me in the reading, in detail what all came before. Came. And then at some point, we got born, you got born. So it's not like these parents live in a vacuum and you are a product of your parents, and now you're trying to make a living based on the hopefully protected environment that you grew up in. No, everything that came before, and not only on Earth, but everything in the universe, everything that happened, we are embodying. So to simply say, well, I am this because of that is way too simple. There might be big cosmic forces going on that get us out of rhythm. There might be something going on in nature, you could say, but actually it is the cosmos. There are things going on that we feel, knowingly or unknowingly, probably unknowingly, that make us being in a dip, making in a down. It's not just because you're a colleague at work, of course. We should have good colleagues at work. It's awful to have people to work with who are negative and depressed and undermining. It's awful. So maybe you need to change. Not too quickly, but maybe you need to change. But that's not what's going on for you. That's just some kind of irritant, like a mosquito. A one-engine mosquito is bugging you on the side, but that's not your life. Your life is much bigger. And it's not just what happened to your parents, which is very interesting. And they remain for the rest of your life major reference. Whether you have good relationships or bad relationships, doesn't matter. Your parents are the major references. Even when they're both gone, even when you don't like them, they're still references. But what is behind that, the human inheritance, that's what we're embodying. Shall we look in the text and see if we recognize some of it? So if I go too fast, well, you can say in the chat box it's too fast, but we have also people here. We are at Ratnaling. We're in a very beautiful location. And the people who are here working at Ratnaling, we are here together. So if it goes too fast, you say so. So if we're going to page, but I'm going to jump, huh? So I assume you have the English copy on page 5. So the first paragraph, Just briefly, like children, we find it difficult to believe in a time before the world we know took shape, a time when the house we inhabited had not been built, when its lumber, its wood, was trees, and its nails rock embodied ore, its windows sand along the ocean shore. So from our perspective, the universe seems vast and eternal. But if you go to the bottom of that paragraph, Rinpoche writes, matters might seem otherwise. So the next paragraph is a very important one. Looking at the evening sky, we may become aware of standing on a planet that is moving through space. Well, I never felt that, do you? But everything seems to be moving. The sun, the moon, the satellite, the stars we see. So we're on a moving planet. In our mind's eye, we can envision the far-flung, that's just far away reaches of space, empty and vast, pulsating with primordial energies. Next page, rhythms develop, rippling with momentum and direction. As dynamic openness of space gives rise to qualities, textures, innumerable appearances dance into being. Subatomic, atomic, molecular, and form more complex patterns. Let's just stop there. You, and we, it's of course we, but let me say it's you. In knowledge of freedom, we say you because it's just more direct. You want to confront in a healthy, wholesome, caring, interested, loving way. You want to confront. That basically means to face. It's not like combative confront. We're not going to battle, but to confront. This is my life. I see it as my life. So in this context that Rinpoche writes, now you show up in an empty, vast space. That is your habitat. In an empty, vast space. That is your home. And this is very critical. Pulsating with primordial energy. That's what you, is we, if I say that. That's what you embody. You embody primordial energy. And the characteristic of energy is actually threefold. It's power, intelligence, and rhythm. So the rhythms develop. So while you are living, there are cosmic rhythms going on. Do you think sorry I say so much you, but it goes faster that way. Do you really think that you live a life without being impacted by anything else that's going on? More than the earthquakes and the tornadoes and the fires and the happens in the street and you're in the family? You are embodying vast space. Pulsing, you are pulsing primordial energy. You are not only subjected to, but you are embodying rhythms that ripple with momentum and direction. So to say, well, I feel upset because so-and-so did this to me, it doesn't make any sense. We are upset. I'm learning this too, of course. I'm upset. And can I take a moment and connect with the vast space? Can I recognize that I'm actually pulsating with primordial energies and that I'm not only subjected to rhythms in the cosmos, but that I'm embodying them. So to find rhythm is essential, and that's why we do rhythm in Kum Nye dancing. The rhythm of the universe is not 1, 2, 3, 4, but 1, 2, 3, 4, or even 1, 2, 3, 4. If there is a steady beat, then all these different rhythms come in this steady beat, and then they will manifest according to their capabilities. So the steady beat is very, very powerful. That enables you, if I do a little bit kind of poetic, that's what enables you to make music. So this is what we embody. This is the background. The background is vast space, primordial energy, with rhythms. So the energy, the primordial energy is power. And Kum Nye 1, we experience that as abundance, power. intelligence. There's a knowing there because it shapes according to the intelligence that has been embodied before. And then the rhythms. So maybe one of these three speak to you, especially at this time in your life. But you want to not find your own rhythm. For me, it's a little bit misunderstanding that I have to find my rhythm in life. No, you don't have to find your rhythm in life. There is a rhythm. Can you join the rhythm? At day and night, full moon, new moon, birth to death. There is a rhythm. There are ups and there are downs. So you need to be in that rhythm. In Rinpoche's teaching, we learn to be in the rhythm by the experience of being well. That's Kum Nye meditation. So Kum Nye meditation makes you stop, open up your inner space. The first book opens up your inner space so that the universal rhythms can actually be free to be embodied, not held out. And many people say, well, I need to be reserved, I need to be on guard, I need to restrain. No, you don't need to. You need to let it happen, and then what wisdom informs your action? And Rinpoche writes, and we'll hit that point, Rinpoche will point to that. Of course, we all need guidance. What is guiding our wisdom in action? So be very careful with the strategy, which will be the next session, the 2 more sessions. What is your strategy? And you'll see that the strategy of living is the name of a chapter, which we will do. It's really in the way. That has grown because of how you grew up. The strategy that we will want to form is to live. Have people ask you, what's the meaning of life? Is to live. There's no other meaning. Living. Okay, you can be poetic and say living fully. All right, fine. But the purpose in life is to live. There's no other strategy. So don't have internally some kind of strategy that actually prevents you from this abundant energy, this vast space, and this rhythm. If you have a strategy, oh, I need to be on guard. Like sometimes young people, they break up a relationship and they say, I never fall in love again. They're 16. I never fall in love again. Well, living life is fall in love with life. And my mother thought there's only one person in the whole world that fits. I thought that too for a long time. It's not true. Living in life, you love everybody. And of course, then there are certain people maybe that can spark you or that you fly along with for a while. But so to live fully, that's what we embody. Watch that there is not some kind of internal strategy that has been learned. That causes us to be in a corral. So how do you get out of the corral? Well, wait a minute, we are on the first page. It's too early. You do Kum Nye dancing, helps, because Kum Nye dancing is in the openness, is accessing the energy, and brings us in line with this pulsating rhythms. So this whole first session is about that we embody everything that came before. That's the whole first session. We embody everything that came before. And that's always manifesting. So let's go back to the page, and I change a few pages because Rinpoche writes about the very, very beginning of the earth, how it all started. And he writes a little bit about what he has learned about that and what the Western understanding is. But on page 9, on the end of the 3rd paragraph, it's actually the 2nd full paragraph, it writes, awesome powers that lay beyond human control. That's what we embody. We embody awesome. You know what awesome is? Foreigners, awesome is huge. Grande, I guess. Big, big forces beyond our control. So to try to control is not the right way. We'll get to what is the right way, but not to control, because what we control is actually what there's so much more that one, we don't know, we don't even know. And second, we cannot control this. There's a gigantic movement going on through the eons, through the ages. And we're embodying that. So people think it's very scary. Well, me too. It's very scary. We say, oh, we should surrender. Yeah, that's actually what it is. But the reason why, and now I'm jumping the gun, you say in English, but I'm going ahead, too fast ahead, is when we surrender, we do not become helpless. When we surrender, we actually submitting ourselves to the internal program of life that always goes towards fulfillment. That is life. Life begins, grows, and fulfills, and then it goes into something else. So everything around you in nature is a beginning, grow, and then it goes away. So that is the pattern. You surrender to that instead of fighting. Because we fight it based on guilt, based on fear, based on being left out, based on all kinds of things we have learned when we grew up. So to surrender is a very, very big thing, but it is not surrender to something. Surrender means no more strategies. No more strategies. When you jump the corral, there is not a strategy out there, it's openness. And then the only powers we have is questioning and being aware. You're not just going there like a zombie, well, just do to me whatever. No, aware and question. And what wisdom will inform our action? That's the ultimate question. This book, what wisdom will inform our action? And you say, well, no, that's maybe much bigger. What wisdom will inform our action? So, the questions that come up, each chapter has about 20 questions, and ideally, and we did in 2 months programs, you answer them all. But it's a very special process. There are 2 kinds of questions. The first question is the one that you keep in mind. And the second question is, if you question right, you discover you already had the knowledge from the very beginning. It's just covered with strategies, or what Rinpoche calls, and we work with that too, layers of conditioning. So by questioning, we penetrate the layers of conditioning, the corral, and when we are through, we discover we already had the knowledge. Rinpoche calls it, or oh, mahum, we already had the knowledge, and the whom is the embodiment of it. So there's 2 kinds of questions, and some questions have both in them, like what wisdom informs my actions. I would suggest you write that down. And we'll discuss that again, but when you answer a question, do not let the thinking mind answer it. You can say, well, how on earth do you do that? Very simple. You don't write anything that you ever thought before. So if a thought comes up, don't write that one down. So fresh, and the threshold of the future. What wisdom informs my action? You can say, what does it inform now? No guilt, no fear. What wisdom is informing my actions? And then you see there's a strategy, actually, that is helpful, but it's also limiting. So let's go back a few more minutes. So below that paragraph, awesome powers, beyond human control, but you are embodying them already. And then is a very nice, from my point of view, this knowledge may have come more readily to some than to others. The knowing ones, both feared and respected, became healers and guides, channels to power others could not comprehend. They instructed their people in order of the world, showing them the attitudes and actions that would harmonize with the great powers and ensure survival. So from my point of view, this book is a channeling by a knowing one. So, you know, like Rinpoche would say, you don't need to see him, he would say. It's here. This is what I would say. You know, there is awesome powers that lay beyond human control. This is coming from somebody who, anyway, knows much more than me, and not know in the sense of knowledge, but in ways and attitudes and actions that might help. So we're looking for attitudes and actions that would help. There is no dogma in that. It can be this for this person and that for that person. It's a little bit confusing because when you talk to a person who is more advanced, let's say in this topic, he might say or she might say something to this person and something else to that person. So it's not the same. And if this person speaks right, then she or he speaks in a way that fits all of us. But even when you listen to the paragraphs I read, if you would share it with each other, you hear something different. You have heard the first hour, you've heard something different than the person next to you. The person next to you is that little image on the computer. You heard something different. Either what fits you in your jumping the corral or what fits you to stay in the corral. This is not debatable teachings like you agree or disagree. If you're disagree or agree mode, I'm not doing a good job. So this is not an agree or disagree teaching. Just let it happen and let's see and let it speak to you. So then on the next page, and then this is pages and pages Rinpoche writes, and all you need to know about this, that Rinpoche writes 5,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, thousands of years ago, and even on page 11, he's talking about in the middle, entire cultures may have disappeared, their knowledge lost to us, but you still embody it. So completely lost, nowhere to be found, but not lost in the sense of that it is gone, vanished. You are embodying it. It's actually, but that's beyond this context, it's actually possible to contact a culture that has disappeared completely and seemingly lost knowledge completely. It's still possible to access that because we embody it. So there's a way to access that. Even of deceased people. People were big. Like in this country before the Westerners came, you know, the crazy horse, is a big one. Big, one of the big ones, Native American Indians. He's dead, and his culture is gone and lost, but it's not. You can still access it. Or in our teachings, Longshenpa or Padmasambhava, they seem to be gone, maybe not, but they're still accessible. And not only in their books, but everything because we embody it. So this is important for your private teaching, is which teacher, which teaching, which culture really seems to speak to you. And when you sit quietly, you can ask, what was this person teaching? What was this culture so knowledgeable about? So whatever you question, whatever you place as a question in your mind, becomes a channel from that embodied knowledge to you. So yeah, you need to be out of the way. You cannot sit there and interpret it or try to steer it or say nothing is happening or this is very special. No, you make a connection. So entire cultures disappear, yet we embody. And then the last of that paragraph in the middle of page 11, cultural forms shifted through the millennia like the patterns on a kaleidoscope. Now on the bottom, and then we go back to one more Kum Nye dancing, there were also seekers, and we're not talking now about the wise ones, we're also seekers who sensed the incompleteness of their human knowledge. The questions they raised challenged existing views of conditioning. That's what knowledge of freedom is about. Knowledge of freedom assumes that who reads this, us, you, me, everybody here, that you have become, or that you are a seeker. Not because you're lacking something, but because you have a sense that there is more to know that you already know, that there's more wisdom accessible to you. So you're seeking to find other sources of wisdom than the strategies of living that we have created. There's more. So you become a seeker. Some people think seekers, oh, poor people, they're seeking, they're always seeking, they never find anything, they're seeking. And they got it and they seek more. No, seeker is really very beautiful. Seeker is a person who is questioning and being aware. That's a seeker. So it doesn't mean that you're lacking anything. You say, what are these powers that I embody? What are these rhythms? I want to know what I am. So in this teaching of knowledge of freedom is, what am I? Not who am I? What am I? So that I am participating and I support, by questioning and being aware, the most optimal embodiment of the knowledge I already have. That's knowledge of freedom. So let's do a little bit Kum Nye dancing before we have a short break. So after 15, we're going to 20. And you can go to any gesture really, but 20 is opening the present moment ocean wide. So that's what you want, opening the present moment ocean wide. And becoming aware, you need openness. Questioning, by questioning, you are connecting to openness. So the first posture is the legs are a little bit apart. And this is posture 2, this is important. Legs are spread wide apart, the toes pointing a little bit outward. And emphasize the exhalations. This is the posture for present can just be. Present can just be. And the more we open up, the more we are interested, questioning, the more knowledge we already embody, the knowledge we already embody will come to the foreground. Place the left hand above the left knee, with the thumb pointing in, the finger pointing out, and a vigorous hold. You want to really vigorous, because there's a lot of power in your thighs, your upper leg. So and then, Andy did it already, so you can just follow Andy. What he did is raise the right arm, arching it overhead to the left, with the cupped palm and the fingers closing, touching, facing forward. The arm and hand form a horizontal line. This posture penetrates space with the right arm, while at the same time loosening up the lower body energies. How you squeeze there to make it pulsating. So of course, by penetrating space and by loosening up lower body energies, new contacts, new relationships will emerge. So opening the present moment ocean wide, so new contacts and new relationships will emerge. Now take 4 counts to go in the opposite. 1, 2 in the middle, 3, 4. So with the posture, don't worry if you do it right or not. You just copy Andy and you do what you hear. But it's the sentence, open the present moment. ocean wide, new contacts, new relationships. Basically open up, don't stay home, don't sit there, do something that opens up new contacts, at home or outside, whatever. New relationships, not just people, but it's with the sun and the moon and the nature and the tree and the time and the space, new relationships. If you jump the corral, you have lots of tools, basically questioning and being aware. Now we go 4 to the other side, so 2 in the middle and 2 to the other side. Hold, 1, internally count, 1, 2, 3, 4, and up, 1, 2, 3, 4. Count, you need the rhythm. I help you, but you need your rhythm, not your rhythm. Connect to a larger rhythm. Relaxing, opening the present moment, ocean wide. You penetrate with the arm that reaches, and you initiate the loosening up of lower body energies. They are the most contracted and suppressed. That's where our power is. Rocket power in the lower body energy. Hold, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 1, 1. Last time to the left, the right arm is penetrating space, new contacts, new relationships with openness, pulsating energy and rhythms. This posture embodies fundamental openness, fundamental pulsating energy, fundamental rhythms. That's what we embody. We don't embody the rules and regulations of the corral. This is what we embody. This is you. Gesture 38 is energizing body and awakening mind. So place the feet wide apart, the toes pointing out, not sideways but out. Bend the torso forward from the waist in a horizontal position with the hands above the knees, the thumbs pointing in, and the back is as flat as possible. Arms straight. The breath is so light. Eventually in Kum Nye dancing there is no physical breath anymore, which is very interesting. What happens when there's no physical breath? Now while the left leg remains straight, the right knee begins to bend over the right foot. Shift your weight to the right. Press down with your right hand while the right shoulder comes forward. And push, this is the most important part, push the buttocks, your bottom, always sideways and down. Strong gaze, so your eyes are strong, focused, they don't dance around. Energizing body, awakening mind. That's all you need to say. Energizing body, awakening mind. So we're replacing the internal dialogue with more nuggets of wisdom. 4 to the other side, so that's 2 in the middle and 2 to the other side. Energizing body, awakening mind. Coming up, other side. So now count 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now silently. And last time. Coming up. Bring the legs together. So this is an important moment. Embodying empty and vast space. Pulsating with primordial energy. Rhythms developing and rippling with momentum and direction. You embody all and everything. And finally, before the break, gesture 40, 40. Trusting my aliveness. So that sentence in this teaching, the sentence is the most critical, meaning you can copy and you will be okay. Trusting aliveness. Stretch your arms in front of you at shoulder height. The cupped palms, so the fingers are touching, and it's a little bit cupping, almost touching. The eyes are wide open, nothing coming in and going out because everything is open space. Begin to widen the space between the palms at shoulder width. The cupped hands stay parallel, so you move out and back, so back and forth, together and apart. Now gradually speed up. Until the hands move as fast as possible. The hands don't touch. Trusting my aliveness, trusting my aliveness. Intense, intense. And stop at the heart level. Now the left arm, let's start again. The right arm goes up. The left arm goes down. Sharp. The palms facing inward. And switching. They always cross over exactly in front of the heart. This is strengthening my trust in the senses, not in my strategies, not in my guilt or fear. No, I strengthen my trust in the senses. I become aware and I can question. Coming back, 1, 2, cross over, 3, 4, and hold, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, coming back, 1, and then we stop, 2, stop in the middle. We go back to the first one. So the first one is 4 counts slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 3 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now double the speed. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then double. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 3, 4. Now as fast as you can. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And up. 1 up, 1 down. 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4 to the center. 3, 4. 1, 2. Strengthening my trust in my senses. 4. Coming back. 3, 4. And now not holding. 4 and coming back. 4 in the middle. Going up. 4. Come back. So now count. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now double the speed. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And double. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And come to the middle. And 1, 2, 3, 4. And down. Just stand. Embodying openness. Embodying pulsating primordial energy. Embodying cosmic rhythms. Embodying all and everything. Now I'm on the threshold of an open future. What wisdom will inform my actions? Just have that question, no answer. What wisdom will inform my actions? The sound of the bell keeps actually rippling out. It doesn't stop anymore. So as you stand there, stay with the sound as long as you can. And I'm sitting very close to it, and I can probably hear it longer than you because I'm so close. But it never stops. Mouse,